Hey, Reef enthusiasts, welcome back to our NORE Livestream series. I'm Gavin Jones, NORE's Treasurer Secretary, and today I'm joined by local hobbyist and NORE board member Alex Fuller.
How's it going, everyone?
Today we're going to talk about tank teardowns and moving saltwater reef tanks. Whether you're moving into a new house or apartment or buying a tank from someone downsizing or taking a break from the hobby, we're going to cover the essentials to successfully relocating a thriving reef ecosystem to its new home. But before we dive in, a huge shout out to our NORE club sponsors, Reef Culture, 330 Corals, Dirty Dogs Coral, Shark Bait, A Dash of Poodle, in Harvey's Harbor. Without their support, reef clubs and the events we put on wouldn't be possible. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to receive updates on all of NORE's videos. And if you're watching on Facebook, head over to our NORE Facebook page and like and follow us on there as well. But to get into it, Alex, we brought you on for a very special reason. That's because you recently moved tanks. But before we get into all that, tell us, how long have you been in the hobby? What got you what got you started?
So I've been in the hobby about 5 years. Started when I was around 20. I've liked fish for a long time. My parents have said that I liked fish when I was little. I started with freshwater and then quickly moved to saltwater. And I started with 29 gallon and quickly grew from that to a 75 gallon and then to a 140 gallon that I have now.
You said 140 gallon?
Yeah.
And that's what you moved, right?
Yeah, that was the tank I moved. Yeah.
Awesome. I bet that was no easy task. So whether it's 140 gallons or I recently acquired a 32 BioCube that I moved from someone's house into my basement. We're going to cover, what it takes, what you need, how to handle your livestock, and preparation into actual moving the tank. So, Alex, when you started prepping, what did you get together to get your tank started to move?
Well, honestly, the biggest thing was buckets. I used a lot of buckets. I started getting those together. I started kind of planning out what I was going to do. It happened very fast. I ended up moving for work, and I had about a month to prep before everything needed to move. The other thing I started to do was get ready to sell a lot of stuff. I opted to sell instead of keep a lot of my coral. So a lot of prepping was getting the frags ready for a NORE frag swap. I actually sold a lot at the NORE frag swap. And then the rest of it was kind of figuring out where stuff was going to go as I moved.
Right. So you said buckets. I know. How many buckets did you have to move a 140 gallon tank?
I did it over a couple trips, but I probably had 10 or 12 that I took. I filled up with rocks or water consistently and took back and forth between my old apartment and my new house, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you fit it all into one car, it gets pretty packed. So
I know when I did this recent 32 BioCube, I took all the buckets I had in the house, plus the guy who was selling had a few. So I had probably a good I think I took most of the water. So 30 gallons. That's, that's quite a few buckets. But a hose to siphon, I took, have you seen those, the Ciche, is it the zero pump? The one that goes all the way down to the bottom?
I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I have it sitting over there. I forgot to grab it. But I took that. So having things, my thumbs up. I love when I do that. So the tools for it, a hose to siphon if the person you're getting the tank from doesn't have one. Which if you're moving your own tank, you should have that yourself. The buckets to do it. Everything
else, honestly, was mostly just to hold the equipment. All the rock I moved while it was live, so all the rock went into the buckets with the water. I tried to keep it really simple because the less stuff that I had, the easier it was to kind of organize everything.
Now, where you're different than some people, or some situations, is you took several weeks to move, right?
Yeah, I took about 4 weeks, 3 trips, and then the final trip was actually to the house with the tank.
Now,
So I go ahead.
You were slowly tearing down, taking stuff out. Where did you put it in the meantime, since your tank wasn't set up at your new house yet?
So the old system had my 140 gallon and then a 40-gallon breeder plumbed into it. So I took that 40-gallon breeder, and the first trip was moving that, and a lot of the coral. I moved it all in one. Most of the coral got moved the very first trip. I wanted to just get that out of the tank, out of the way. So a lot of that coral with the 40 breeder got moved to my parents' house, and I set that all up. I tore it down, set it all up in one day, and then kind of just left everything there for that week. I would say the hardest part is figuring out what to do with most of the frags I still had left. I think I ended up just throwing them into one bucket, and Al just rolled around as I drove. But they all made the drive. That wasn't the hard part. It was setting up the tank as a temporary tank and then leaving it there for a little while.
Now, you said you sold a bunch of your stuff. So did you sell on Facebook? I know you said you went to Frankenstein.
Yeah, so I kind of got lucky with the timing. I was already set up to sell as a hobbyist at the Frankenstein swap last year, and so when I found out I was going to be moving, I ended up fragging about twice as many frags as I had. I basically fragged everything. I wanted to sell as much as I could. I thought it was better to just kind of get rid of it, and then I've been buying a little bit of it back here and there as I've been going since the new tank, but I thought it'd be better to get rid of it and have less to worry about as I moved, especially the expensive pieces. Most of what I have is SPS, so a lot of the expensive pieces I try to get rid of.
Now, since we brought up the frag swap, so you said you did this last year. We're having it again this year, so perfect time to bring this up. Our Frankenstein frag swap 2024 will be September 28th. So that's here in a month. Today's the 28th, so we're a month away. So it's going to be the same place, Cuyahoga County Fairgrounds. For more info on the frag swap, you can go to nore.fish/swap, or we have an event on our Facebook page. Go ahead and check us out there. If you know you're going to come, click that going button. Helps us prepare for the swap. But no, we have quite a few vendors. Alex, you're not doing anything this year with it, are you?
No, I wish, but I sold a lot last year.
Still building back up.
Yeah, especially with this is my first house I've ever bought, so I've been dealing a lot with that since I moved. It's only been 8 months, so it hasn't been that long. And then I wanted to let the tank obviously cycle for a little bit since I did tear everything down.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, several things you can do with your livestock if you're moving tanks. Whether you're picking up a tank from somebody and you're not going to set it up right away, or like Alex, you're slowly tearing the tank down to set it up a few weeks later. You could the Rubbermaid, the 50-gallon Rubbermaid stock tank. That's a great cheap option. If you have some place that you can set that up, think if you watch any Reef Builders or Bahama Llama Coral, Remy had a stock tank set up because he was transitioning into his new Red Sea reefer, and he had a stock tank set up. Jake Adams had one set up for one of the tanks that they were working on. So if you're need to look into how to set that up, what to do, Reef Builders, or I forget which channel Remy did it on. It was either Reef Builders or Bahama Llama has a good video on that.
Yeah, those Rubbermaid tubs are great. I bought not for a temporary tank, but I did buy a 100-gallon one for my sump on the new system. So they're really cheap. They're great.
I have a 50-gallon one for my sump on my frag system. Yeah. And the only reason I don't have a 100-gallon is because a 100-gallon wouldn't fit through the basement door.
Yeah, I realized that. I got lucky. It did fit, but I had maybe a half inch of room. So I was like, oh gosh.
I've got I think 24 inches is all I've got.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, everything comes down here has to fit through the basement door.
Yeah.
Now, breaking down the tank, how did you start? What was your first steps in actually getting stuff out of your 140 and moving it to where it was going to be temporarily housed?
So once I got rid of most of the coral, that was definitely the first step, was getting rid of that. Any coral that I had left got put into a cooler. I just used a cooler. I used some egg crate, and I cut out a nice, I don't know how to put it. I basically cut out the shape of the cooler with egg crate. And so any frags I had just rested right in there. Those ones, it wasn't a big cooler, but it held a lot of the frags. And then, like I said, anything else just kind of got thrown into the bucket. But
well, so your 140, did you tear it down all in one day?
No. I did it in about 3 steps. First was a coral, the next was a rock, and then after that was all of the sand, anything left on the bottom, and then the tank itself was the very last step. So
did all of your livestock go out at once?
Yes, that was the second step. So I did coral 1 week, and then I did livestock the next week, just so that when I set up the new tank, I had some time for it to kind of sit for a week before I put livestock, and I felt it was better to put the coral in first before the livestock. All the livestock made the move. I put them all in their own individual bucket again, back to the buckets. But they were all in their own buckets. They weren't going to be fighting or worrying about them tearing each other apart during the move.
Greg has a good question here, and we're going to touch on this later, but we can bring it up now. It says, for fish, do you recommend a battery-powered air pump for transport? What's your thoughts on that, Alex?
Personally, I didn't. The way I moved the fish was I siphoned out, I think I had 10 fish. I don't remember the exact number that I had, but I siphoned out water into every single bucket, and then each fish got their own bucket. But I took them out I took them out, and then I left for my new house probably a half hour later. And
how far of a drive was that for you?
About 2 hours.
So it was at 2 hours. Now,
I'm not the new house, but the temporary tank in my parents' house. So it was a 2 hour drive there, and I took the fish out about a half hour before I left.
Okay. So you're sitting, the fish were in their own containers for about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 hours, because then it took time to pull them out of the car and bring them into the house and then catch them all. So they were probably in the buckets for about 3 hours, but they all had lids on them, so they were mostly sealed. And they had about 4 gallons of water in each one. So
now, I know when I did this 32-gallon BioCube, I bagged all. There were 3 fish. I bagged them all, and it was about an hour and a half drive for me. So really, no different than taking something home from the fish store or something being shipped. You could, if you're going a longer distance, a couple hours, or you're moving states, you could do a bubbler. Really,
yeah, I think if I would have been going far enough to where I would have needed to stop at least once, I probably 3-4 hours, I probably would have gotten at least an aerator and then kept the fish more into one container. But my thought was, well, if I give them, they each had 4 gallons of water, there's going to be enough air in that water for 3 hours. I shouldn't need a bubbler. I think
the only thing you would have to watch out for, which if each fish had its own bucket or whatnot, is ammonia going to build up? How quick will ammonia build up in that? Yeah, that's the only thing I would watch out for.
I don't think I fed them for a couple of days beforehand either, so that they weren't producing as much waste.
Yeah.
I picked that. I remember watching. I don't remember if it was I don't remember whose live stream it was, but I was watching a live stream on someone, a fish supplier, and they said that they never fed their fish for a couple of days before they shipped them because they would have less waste. And I was like, that's a good idea. So I think that's what I did to try and stop any ammonia from building up in those buckets.
Yes, so like I said, you can use a bubbler. I wouldn't say it's necessary if you're going on a super, super long long trip,
Mhm.
then yeah, but you got to think, fish get shipped, overnight,
Yeah.
say they get packed up 4 or 5 o'clock, in the evening, and then you get them, 10 to noon the next day. Um, so it's really up to you and how you're transporting them.
Mm.
Like I said, I did everything in bags. That was just easier for me. That way, the fish were separate. I knew I didn't have to worry about it. But again, mine was only an hour and a half trip.
Yeah.
So we got through that. We jumped ahead there. So going back, we talked about temporary housing. I know when I tore down the 32 BioCube, um, I siphoned the water out. Any loose coral went into bags. So there was a nice scully, a nice trachea. Those all went into their individual bags. But everything on the rocks, just went into buckets with water. It really depends. If you have a bunch of frags, your frag system, a bunch of racks, you can make frag racks the size of the cooler, which is what you said you
Yeah.
did. Is
Yeah.
make it the size of the cooler. And I know a lot of vendors who go to frag swaps, that's what they do. They have racks the size of the cooler. Some of them stackable, and they drop down in the cooler. You fill the cooler with water.
Yeah. Exactly what I did when I sold at the frag swap.
But you get there, so your case is different than mine, and this is something I wish I would have done, and I told myself to do it before I went. But if you're tearing down someone else's tank or even yours, and you want to set it up similar, take pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take pictures of the rock work, where everything is, especially if you want to set it up similar to how it was, because things don't go back together the same way, and they really don't go back together the same way if you don't know what it looked like before.
Yeah. Yeah. The only reason I didn't worry about that is because I kind of took this as the opportunity to I bleached all my rock. I wanted a clean, fresh start for my rock, so that I could kind of do the sand and super glue method of scaping everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we learned that in one of the NORE workshops a year or two ago.
Yeah.
So I ended up redoing my entire scape. That's what was one of the things I took the opportunity to do with the move.
Which was nice in your situation because you had the time. You had everything set in temporary holding, so you could move and rebuild exactly how you wanted before things went back in the tank.
Yeah. I think it took me 15, 16 hours total to scape the whole 140-gallon tank with that rock. It wasn't too expensive, but it took some time.
But yeah, if you want things to go together the same way they came apart, take pictures.
Yeah.
We talked about tools. Next thing I have in my notes is draining the tank. How much of the water from your tank did you take to your temporary housing? Did you?
I think I filled the temporary housing with 100% water from the old tank, and then I did a water change like a week later. But I took all water from the old tank, and I think I even kept some of it. I used some of it that was still in buckets when I was filling up the new tank, or not the new tank, but filling it up when it was put back in its place.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think I dumped out about half the water that was in the tank.
Because your holding system was smaller.
It was 40 gallons versus 140, and I had a 20-gallon long underneath that. So 60 gallons total. So,
so your holding systems, were they bare bottom?
Yes. Yeah. No sand in neither of those. I did have a little bucket because I had a RAS. So I did have a little 5x10 little bucket container thing in one of the tanks for the RAS. But other than that, all the sand got put in its own bucket, scooped out. I ended up rinsing out about half of it and keep reusing it, and the rest I just kind of tossed out because I didn't really need it.
Yep. So, in your situation, you said you completely rebuilt, so you tore apart, and I'm assuming you did a nice deep clean on your 140.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When that thing was empty, I was in there scrubbing. I was getting. I mean, I had the back of it was just a complete wall of coralline algae. So I was scraping all that out. I was kind of looking for any scratches that I could buff out a little bit.
What's your thought on if someone's they bought an entire tank that's already running and moved it, and they don't have a temporary holding spot like you did, that they got to move it and set it back up. What's your thoughts on how deep should they clean that tank?
Honestly, I would focus on, as weird as it sounds, the bottom the most, even though you don't see it, because you don't know what could be caked on there and kind of covered up by the sand and then just sit in the tank. The glass, yeah, you want it to look nice, but you can kind of clean that out once the tank's filled with water. So the bottom and the overflow is what I would focus on, because those are the stuff you can't see. You don't know what's on the glass, and you don't know what could be stuck to it that could be just sitting in your tank once the tank's filled up and you don't want to see it.
I know my thought is that your microbiome grows on everything. Grows on the glass. If you're tearing down a tank and then setting it right back up, Gary, glad to see you got your comments worked out. Feel free to you had some questions you were sending me. Feel free to drop them in the comments. But if you do, you're moving a tank, you want to try and keep that microbiome as close to what it was before. That way, you don't. If you're gonna hit a mini cycle, it's not as big.
Yeah. If I was moving it all in one day, I would not have cleaned out the sand. I would not have bleached the rocks. And I honestly, the biggest thing I would say is start way earlier than you thought. Because even those I took 4 moves, and even every single move, I was still leaving like hours later than I anticipated. The one that I got home, I got to my parents' house to drop stuff off at like 11 o'clock or something like that.
Pin that for later. Awesome. So my next point here on my notes is disassembling. So I said take pictures of the rock work, but take pictures of your plumbing.
Yeah.
If it's a system, like I said, you're buying from someone else, you didn't do that plumbing.
Yeah.
So take pictures and take detailed pictures. And if you have to, maybe label if there's unions or whatever, or you have to make cuts that you have to glue back together later, label when you cut, A, that way you can, put things back together the way they were.
Yeah. The unions are huge when you're doing the plumbing.
What was nice, this was an all-in-one system, so I didn't have to worry about any plumbing, but still getting all the little intricate things back together, the ATO, like where was this, where was the skimmer. I learned, like I said, I told myself to take pictures when you get down there. And then I got talking to the guy, and we talked about all his sea hair and the favias that were in there, and I totally forgot. Totally forgot.
I mean, it's also nice just to see what it was before and after.
Yeah.
Not just to know where stuff is, just to see how has it changed in the coming months.
So that's breaking down. You can. What I did is I drained water down to the rocks, and I slowly pulled the rocks out, put them in buckets, but I kept the fish all the way to the bottom. That way it was easier to catch the fish. And all the rock was out. You said you kept your sand?
Yeah, I kept about half of my sand after the move. I did rinse it really well in RDI water. I would take it. I think I used a strainer, or I forget how I rinsed it. I just rinsed a lot of it because it did get kind of gross after a month of sitting.
Yeah, I'd say definitely if you're gonna reuse the sand, rinse it good.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I think I took one scoop and put it in the tank, and I was like, I cannot use this unless I rinse it. It was kind of gross.
that was one of the things I kicked myself about is I kept the sand and I just kept it in the bottom of the tank. Yeah, but it was it was dirty.
Yeah.
And I ended up I got everything back together and kind of instantly did a water change just to get some of that gunk out.
Yeah, I would recommend, if you can, totally getting all the sand out. Just for one, because my tank was so big. I mean, there's 100 pounds of sand in there. So the tank weighs 200 pounds empty. So that's an extra 100 pounds that you're having to carry around. So from little tanks, it's a little easier, but the big tanks, yeah, you want to take all that out.
Yeah, so that's what Gary asked. He asked about the rocks and the sand. You know, the rocks, they'll have a little bit of detritus in them, depending how much of the previous water you're using, or if you're using any of your own water when you set it back up, or new water. You know, you can blow the rocks off, or you can just let it be. You know, you're probably going to want to do a water change, you know, soon after anyways.
Yeah.
But the rock, you know, that's where all your microbiome is, you know, even more than the surfaces of the tank. You know, so that's where all your microbiome is. Everything that's going to, you know, the nitrogen cycle, everything that's happening there is in the rocks. You know, so I would not like break down a tank and instantly, if you're setting it right back up, instantly use fresh new rock, because then you're going to have a huge cycle and things are going to go downhill fast.
Yeah. Like I said, I did mine differently just because I knew I had time and I wanted to kind of get a clean surface on all of the rocks so I could scape it the way I wanted to.
But with the sand, if someone came and asked me, you know, hey, I'm getting this tank, you know, should I keep the sand? Should I toss the sand and get new? I would tell them, get new sand.
Yeah, I agree.
Just get new sand, toss the old. You know, especially, you know, if it's a larger tank and, you know, you've got some more expensive fish and coral in there, I wouldn't even risk, you know, stirring things up. You know, we can get into the topics, you know, deep sand bed with, you know, the sulfur and all that stuff that could be in deeper sandbags and sand beds, you know, and all the nasties that are in there, you know, that if you stir that stuff up, what it can do to your tank. So I would just suggest, if you're coming and asking me, do I keep the sand? I'd say no, get new sand.
Yeah, I agree. I kept some of it just because I was like, oh, it'll be okay. I didn't see any negative effects, but you never know.
You know, and maybe, you know, the sand, you know, that's the most surface area for your microbiome. So maybe since you don't have as much, you do more frequent water changes, and that'll help. If you do go through a mini cycle, that'll help keep, you know, ammonia and nitrites down. You know, but yeah, I would definitely get new sand. That's one of those do as I say and not as I do.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, but then again, I understood that what could happen.
Yeah.
You know, and it was quick. I found the tank on Facebook, and I really didn't have time to run somewhere and get new sand ordered online. It was, you know, I'm going to get it. This is the only day I have to get it. And yeah, sand's going to take a few days to get here. So I just kept the sand.
Yeah. Yeah, sand's not that expensive too. I mean, normally you can find deals on it and whatnot.
But so we already touched a little bit on transporting. When did you move?
So I moved I was moving in November of last year. So I got my house the first week of December. I was moving the month of November. And then I took a couple weeks after that to set up the new tank.
So November wasn't too bad temperature wise. It was cooler.
Yeah. I want to say it was, well, there wasn't snow out, but it was probably 40s, 50s during the move. So I was definitely, I was blasting the heat in the car. I was sweating. And by the time I got there, I think I set it to 78 and just left it.
So yeah, like, so we're talking about temperature. That's one thing to really pay attention to is the weather. I heard a story this past weekend from about Justin and Jeff. If you see Jeff, or heck, even send him a message now, ask him how to freeze a fish without a freezer. And Justin had a great one. I don't know if Justin, if you're on here, if you want to jump on or whatnot, tell the story. But it's not my story to tell. But ask Justin or Jeff about it. But you want to make sure if it's hot out, that if you need a cooler and you need ice, or you need something that's going to keep the water temperature down, you have that. Or like I went to a frag swap in January of this past year, and it was -degrees. It was cold. And so if you need something, I tried using a heating blanket around my buckets and my coolers to keep it warmer in the car. So if you need heat packs or something to help keep the temperature up, just take that into consideration when you're planning your move. Next step, what type of vehicle do you need to take? Luckily, this 32-gallon BioCube all fit in the back of a Jeep Cherokee. But I'm sure your 140-gallon tank wouldn't fit in the back of my Jeep Cherokee, would it?
No. It's 6 feet long and 18 inches wide. So there's not a lot of cars it'll fit in.
So I'm assuming you used a truck?
No. So I got lucky. My parents' minivan, Toyota, was just long enough to where if we put the seats down, we could slide it into the back and it would fit. But we threw blankets over the bottom. We threw blankets over the top of it. I'm pretty sure we threw pillows on the side of it so it didn't tip and hit the side of the car. And it fit almost perfectly, the tank and the stand. But then there was no room left in the car, so that was really all I could take during the trip. So
you could do that because you were doing multiple trips.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a large tank and you've got to do it all in one go, consider the space in the vehicle. Yeah. And when you think that is enough space, go one step bigger, because it's not.
Yeah. If I didn't have a couple weeks to do this, I would have had to get a decently sized U-Haul. I took 4 trips if you include the tank, and I filled the car every single time. It was just me in the car, and I have a Ford Edge.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a good amount of room in the back there with the seats down, and I still filled it every single time with buckets and other random equipment.
Right. So really plan your vehicle. There's a lot that goes into the front end in prepping, so you can do it safely for you, safely for all your living animals that you're moving. My dogs are going crazy upstairs. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so plan your vehicle. We talked about transport containers, so coolers, buckets. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Coolers, buckets. And my note on here, which Greg, you already hit me up on this, was aeration. So we talked about that. So you've got everything torn down, whether in your buckets, and you got everything in an appropriately sized vehicle, with your ice packs, heat packs, whatever you need to safely transport them. You get it home. What was your first step in reassembling everything?
Definitely livestock out. Since it was a little cooler, livestock was out first. Any bucket with fish in it was immediately out of the car. Equipment I didn't really care about because I could take my time on that. But I was 2 bucket in each hand, running into the house, dropping it, going back, grabbing the next ones. So that was the first thing out of the car.
And just refresh, I know you said it, but you're moving everything into tanks that are already set up, temporary holding tanks.
Yes. When I moved the fish and when I moved a lot of the rock, it was the tank was already set up and everything was already, the bleach container that I had was already set up. When I moved the coral, I didn't have it set up because I moved the coral and the 40-gallon at the same time. But I still moved the livestock first. I still wanted to get that out of the car first, and then I took my time getting the stand out and the tank out and setting all that up and filling it up, and then I kind of took my time. But because I knew what temperature the house was at, I knew the temperature of the coral wasn't going to drop too much. But I still ended up, I think I took an hour with a couple heaters in the tank just to make sure that the tank temperature was up to temp before I put the fish in.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, the first step either way. Hi, Kitty.
Hi, buddy. Walking behind me.
First step either way, because your coral and your fish are probably going to be the last thing you put in the vehicle.
Yeah.
So I would, make them the first thing to come out too.
Yeah.
Because whether they may not be going into a system right away, but our houses or wherever you're taking them is probably going to be, a decent enough temperature where it's not going to be a significant drop in the water temperature for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I knew I didn't have to worry about the fish or coral once it was inside the house. I could kind of take my time with it in there because I knew the temperature was going to be okay for the most part.
See, that's what I did. Everything came in, livestock came in, and then I set up the stand, leveled the stand, and got the tank on the stand. Which leveling a stand in a 1920s house in a basement that wasn't made for people to be down here, is a pain.
Yeah. I got lucky because the place where I wanted to put the tank, the big tank, not talking about the temporary housing tank. The big tank is right underneath one of those massive joists that runs across the house. So it's pretty level, but I still put, I think I got a carpet underneath of it, kind of help even the weight and whatnot.
Now yours was different because you set your tank up and then you actually did all your plumbing through the floor into the basement, right?
Yeah. So when I got the house, I redid the whole floor and then drilled a couple holes in the floor for the plumbing in like the first 3 days.
How was that plumbing everything through the floor?
I measured it probably 40 times. I drilled 2 1-inch holes and then a 1 1/4 inch hole. It was 2 1 1/4 inch and then 1 1.5 inch hole. But I marked it several times and then I drilled a guide hole and then I went downstairs in the basement and measured where the guide hole was to make sure that it was where I thought it was. And then I finally went through and drilled all the way through.
Why am I thumbing?
I was like, what's that? Is it?
I don't know. It's an Apple thing, but it never does it when I want it to do it.
I saw your hand come up like this and then there you go.
It never does it when I love watching. Do you watch Reef Beef at all?
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah. So I love watching Reef Beef, and Ben will just make hand gestures and it'll pop up and it becomes a thing. But they're such characters that it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first thing, if you're using new sand, get that sand in there when you're resetting back up, and then start building your rock. Really, if you're cleaning equipment, you can do that. Run it through some citric acid, but you don't have any livestock in there yet, so start building your rock. In those pictures that you took, follow your template that you made yourself, and it's pretty much the same thing, in reverse. That's what's nice about it, is you do it one way, tearing it down, and then you do it kind of in reverse, minus, putting the livestock in right away.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I think after moving, setting it back up is the easiest part. I've moved that. I've not moved this tank twice, but I've moved twice in the past 18. Well, it was 18 months before this last move that I moved, so it was twice in 18 months. And both times, setting back up took significantly less time than the whole tear down. I want to say quarter the time the tear down took.
I say definitely, the more you do it, the more efficient you become at it.
Yeah.
Just like anything. I know, you see a lot of tanks, for sale on Facebook Marketplace or, Reef to Reef. I'd say don't be afraid to take a whole tank. If you're in a position where you're looking at it, you're probably, and actually considering it, you're probably, deep enough into the hobby where you can handle it. Don't be afraid to do it. Just do your prep work, make sure you have all the tools you need for the job. So you said 140-gallon tank, 6 foot long. How many people did that take?
We took 3 people to load it into the van. And then when I got here, I was fortunate. I had about 4 or 5 friends that were helping out up here. And that made it a lot easier. 3 people was a little bit of a struggle. But when we had 7 people, I mean, we got that thing in so fast. And there was a couple of them were just guiding the tank, and that's all they were doing.
Did you have the suction cup thingies?
No, we just
man. So yeah, there's a reason I went this way. So we're always plugging the club and plugging membership. And one of the neat things that comes with a NORE Gold membership is we have some suction cups, some heavy duty ones, not the cheap ones, for people in this situation who are moving tanks, get new tanks. And if you're a NORE Gold member, you get to use those for free. So one of the perks of membership, if you're interested in becoming a member, if you're not a member already, or if your membership has lapsed, you go to nore.fish/membership. All our membership options are there. There's silver, which is $30 for an entire year, gold, which is $50 for an entire year, and then a gold family, which is gold membership for a family, I believe, up to 4 for $80. And if you do that from now until the beginning of the year, so I guess that's not the right way to say that. So any membership purchased now will be good for 2025. So if you get it now, you get 9, 10, 11, 12. You get 4 you get 4 months added on to your year membership. You get a 16 month membership. nore.fish/membership. And really another perk that the gold membership is good for. Greg, stop it. Yeah, I do maths with my fingers.
I do math at work, and then I get home and I'm done. It's not happening anymore.
But another good thing the membership is good for is we talked about the frag swap, September 28th. If you're a gold member, you get early entry into the frag swap. So I believe normal entry, the swap starts at 11 o'clock. If you're a gold member, that gets you early entry into the swap. Now, the only way to get that, you can't purchase early membership. So the only way to get that early membership is with a gold membership, or we're going to give away 2 right now. So we'll have 2 spots to get a early early entry. Now, if you're watching this and you're already a gold member, sorry, you can't win. You already have the perk. So if you're watching this, you're a silver member or you're not a member at all, this is for you. All you have to do is go to our Facebook page, not the NORE Facebook group, but our NORE Facebook page, and send us a message. So what we want you to do, take a screenshot of our YouTube channel, that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, and take a screenshot of the NORE Facebook page that you like and follow the NORE Facebook page. And we will pick the first 2 people to do that aren't already gold members. Oh, yay.
What is going on?
I don't know. My reactions are really happening. But the first 2 people to do that that aren't already gold members will get early entry into the Frankenstein frag swap. So like I said, a screenshot that you subscribe to us on YouTube, a screenshot that you like and follow us on our Facebook page, and the first 2 people to do that, here's what I'll do. Where's the link? I will drop a link in the chat to, how do I share? But so our Facebook page is NORE, Northern Ohio Reef Enthusiasts. If you're watching on Facebook, then you already see us. I'm trying to find the share. Of course, it's when you're looking for something.
Yeah, you can't find it.
That you can't find it. Man. Well, I'll get that in the chat. And this doesn't have to be like during the live stream. Like I said, it's the first 2. So if nobody's got it before then. But then if you're watching on Facebook, you need to get to our YouTube. Our YouTube is at NORE_Reef. And I just dropped that into the chat. So you should see that on both the Facebook and the YouTube channel. So like I said, the only other way you get early entry into the frag swap is with a gold membership. So let's see, we got that out of the way. Alex, what was the biggest challenge in moving your system?
Biggest challenge I'll answer this 2 ways. If I was doing it in one day, I think it would have been time and just space. There's a lot more than you think is going to move in the amount of time you have. But I think my biggest challenge was probably, honestly, the temporary housing. Because I could throw stuff, and you think that's the easiest part because you can throw it into something that you don't have to worry about, but that's exactly what it is. I stopped worrying about it as much as I should have because I still had an air stone in temporary housing. Because it was temporary housing and I kind of got everything out of the way, and I'm like, okay, now I've got an empty tank, and all I got to do is move the empty tank. I started focusing less on the temporary housing, and I did have a purple tang that didn't make it because I focused on that not enough. So I would say, just even though stuff is in its own tank, you don't have to worry about moving it all in one day. Still focusing on the tank and still making sure that things are okay in the tank. So I'm pretty sure it was an ammonia spike in one of the temporary housing tanks that killed the fish.
Oh, how many fish did you lose?
I lost 2 fish.
Okay, what did you lose?
I had like 9 or 10. I lost a purple tang and a leopard wrasse, so they weren't like cheap fish either.
Yeah, now the tang I can see because they're more sensitive. I would think a wrasse might be able to stick through that, but
Yeah, I don't know. I tried to save. He lasted a lot longer. I'll say he lasted a couple of days longer than the tank, almost a week. But I'm not sure if it was just too much stress. Because you had the stress of moving for 3 hours in a bucket, and then put into a new tank with only a little bit of. I mean, he had lots of sand and rock in the old tank, and then he gets put into a tank with just a little container of sand and one rock, and no glass bare bottom, so I didn't have a whole lot of. It had way less places to hide. So I'm assuming it was just stress than an ammonia spike in that smaller holding tank.
Yeah. Perfect. I got the links now. Good. I just dropped the Facebook link and the YouTube channel link. So if you want that early entry, those are the links for you. I would say the most difficult thing breaking down this 32 BioCube is easy taking it down. My hard part was putting it back together.
Really?
Yeah. It was more just getting everything to fit.
Okay.
Getting everything to fit. There was stuff on the back glass that I took off. Just because I wasn't sure I wanted it on the back glass, and it was easier to transport. I know what was really neat is almost half the back glass was covered in green star polyps.
Oh yeah, okay. I've seen pictures.
So,
of that.
When you get a tank like that, do you take it off there, or how would you move that? What's your thoughts on that, Alex? How would you move that?
Well, so you got an hour and a half drive, right?
Correct.
I doubt it would survive the trip out of water that long. So I think the only option would be to take it off, but I would probably try and take it off with like a glass scraper. And then I would consider, like, if I wanted it back like that, I would almost consider, since it's green star, it was a matting green star polyps, right?
Yeah.
I'd almost consider either putting a little bit of glue and like gluing some of those mats back onto the back of the glass, or using a magnet or something if I wanted it back on there. But I would probably take it off the glass because I don't think it would survive that long out of water.
So I kept it on because green star polyps, I've kept it out of water for a long time, like when I'm fragging and stuff. So I kept it on, but what I did was I took wet paper towels.
Oh, okay.
And draped it over. That way, anything that was on the glass, it wasn't in water, but it stayed moist.
Yeah.
And they started opening up as soon as I got water back in the tank.
Really? Yeah. The green star polyps are crazy. I avoid them because I don't want them taking over my tank's SPS, so I don't want them taking over my SPS colonies. But yeah, I've heard they can survive some crazy things.
Oh yeah. Now, we're winding down. We've hit a lot of our points. If you have any questions, or if you've moved a tank and there's something that you've done that we haven't covered, drop it in the comments. We can talk about it. We can answer questions. And as always, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. That way, we have Tank of the Month videos that are coming out. Still working on the tank tours videos, but that'll be coming out soon. We'll have a Tidal Gardens video. So there's a lot in the works for our YouTube channel. And of course, we'll be doing a live stream every month. And it's normally either the last or the second to last week of the month. Everything's always posted on the Facebook page. So you can stay up to date with that. Greg, I was on Facebook. I saw your comment. You're looking for a fish trap. I've got one, and I know there are several people in the area that got one, and probably closer to you. But if you need one desperately, I can hook you up.
Have you heard about the red light method
to catching fish?
Yes.
I have not.
So I've tried this once. It kind of worked, but I messed it up, and I found out what I did wrong. If you have to have like something that's controlled on the phone. It's got to be able to do it from far away. So I have Radions, and they've got the special the feature where you can kind of put on your own like test. You can put on whatever spectrum you want on there, and the fish can't see red light, but you can.
I have heard of that.
So, but my mistake when I tried this was the room has to be pitch black. I mean, the only lights are on are the tank lights. You have to black out the windows, you black out every doorway or whatever, or you do it at night. But basically, the only light left in the room is the red light, and the fish kind of freeze because they go from daylight or whatever, the lights above them, to it's pitch black to them. And then a lot of times you can kind of scoop them up real quick before they realize what's happening.
Yeah, I have heard of that. Or, maybe it was Richard Ross using like a red light in his coral spawning. But I definitely have heard something. So I think that about wraps it up. If there's no more questions or comments coming in, Alex, thank you for joining me, jumping on here. I do want to say real quick, we normally have Jeff on here. Jeff's away on work. Unfortunately, he's not on his honeymoon.
I was gonna thought he was on.
He's not on his honeymoon. He's working. That's why he's not here. But I do want to give a huge congratulations to Jeff and Sierra on getting married this past weekend. Very happy for the both of them. And after what I believe they said 14 years, I think that was long enough.
Yeah.
So, if you see Jeff, or, send Jeff a message on Facebook, say congratulations. It was a great wedding for him. So I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up. I think, we hit a good points. If you do have any questions, you're moving a tank, post to the Facebook group. There's a lot of people who can help you out. If you need equipment to do it, if you need some extra tanks, you're not a real hobbyist if you don't have a couple empty tanks sitting around the house.
Oh, I've got at least 7 downstairs.
So if you need some extra tanks to set up, I'm sure there are people that can let you borrow them. That's what's so great about our NORE community, is that when someone is in need, the club reaches out. And don't forget, if you want early entry, like I said, screenshot of you, show that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, screenshot, show that you like and follow the Facebook page, send them to our Facebook page. First 2 people to do it, we'll get early entry into our frag swap September 28th. But other than that, Alex, thank you very much. It was nice having you on here.
Yeah, thank you, Gavin.
Keep your eye out for our next live stream, end of September. You know what? That's the same week as Frankenstein. So maybe we'll do something special with Frankenstein.
During Frankenstein? No, I'm just kidding.
We'll see.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. So definitely keep your eye out. And I think that's a good thing to wrap it up with. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you, Alex. We'll see you all later.
Yeah, thank you, Gavin.